It only required white to commit a small crime, and immediately the punishment follows. Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 10 in the series The Most Fantastic Chess Moves Ever Played. For this one we're going back to 1970, 50 years ago, to Croatia in former Yugoslavia, to the town of Vinkovci. I hope I pronounced that more or less correctly, I probably didn't. It's the 20th of October in 1970 and Mark Taimanov, the Soviet Grandmaster, has the white pieces against the Danish Grandmaster Bent Larsen. It was the 13th round of the event and Taimanov opened with d2, d4. Mark Yevgenyevich Taimanov was born on the 7th of February 1926 and passed away on the 28th of November 2016. He was one of the leading Soviet and Russian chess players and was among the world's top 20 players from 1946 to 1971, a very long time. He became a Grandmaster in 1952 and in 1956 he won the USSR Chess Championship. Several chess variations are named after him in the Sicilian, the Nimzo-Indian, the modern Benoni and the Grunfeld Indian defense. Taimanov was also a world-class concert pianist and he was a World Championship candidate twice in 1953 and 1971. In 71, however, he lost his candidates match by 6 points to 0 to Bobby Fischer, causing embarrassment for the Soviet Union. Knight f6 was the first move from Bent Larsen. Jürgen Bent Larsen, born on the 4th of March 1935 and passed away on the 9th of September 2010. He was a Danish chess grandmaster and author, known for his imaginative and unorthodox style of play. He was the first Western player to pose a serious challenge to the Soviet Union's dominance in chess before Bobby Fischer came along. He's considered to be the strongest player born in Denmark and the strongest from Scandinavia until the emergence of one Magnus Carlsen. Larsen was a 6-time Danish champion and a candidate for the World Chess Championship on 4 occasions. Yes, he also lost to Bobby Fischer by 6 games to 0. He had multiple wins over 7 world champions: Botvinnik, Smyslov, Tal, Petrosyan, Spassky, Fischer and Karpov. From the early 1970s he divided his year between Las Palmas on the Canary Islands and Buenos Aires in Argentina with his Argentinian-born wife. He suffered from diabetes and died in 2010 from a cerebral hemorrhage. That was some Wikipedia information for you on both players. Now let's look at the chess. c4 was played by Taimanov, e6, knight c3 and bishop b4. We have a Nimzo-Indian. Let's go through the opening moves. Queen c2, c5, Taimanov took, Larsen castled, bishop f4, bishop takes the pawn back, knight f3, knight c6, e3, and now d5, transforming to the Queen's Gambit declined with bishop f4, that variation. So transformation from the Nimzo-Indian to the Queen's Gambit declined. a3 from Taimanov, Queen a5 and Rook c1. Kasparov in his book My Great Predecessors calls this a modest move. White dreams of gaining a slight plus without any risks, which would suit Taimanov as he was leading the tournament at that time. Bishop e7, bishop e2 and Larsen took on c4. Bishop takes and knight d5, and this is an interesting moment. Here Taimanov decided to take on d5. Kasparov calls this the first temptation, giving black an isolated pawn, which comes on the board after Larsen recaptured. And now the second temptation for Taimanov. He played queen b3, immediately attacking the weak pawn, instead of castling, which is more safe. But Taimanov fell for the temptation, played queen b3, and now look at this move. g7, g5. No, this is not a move which I call one of the most fantastic chess moves ever played, but it is a very nice move indeed. And 50 years later, the engine approves of it. Kasparov says this is a highly concrete, typical Larsen move. It only required white to commit a small crime, delaying castling, and immediately the punishment follows. You cannot take that pawn. If you take it, for example, with the bishop, then there is bishop takes, knight takes, and d5, d4, with an attack on 2 pieces. The knight on c3 is also pinned, so there's no way out of this. Black wins the piece. Of course, Taimanov saw this, and he retreated the bishop to g3. And Larsson pushed on, g4, now attacking the knight. And here knight e5 was the move that Taimanov after the game immediately suggested, and he tried to demonstrate that knight e5 should have won the game for white. Kasparov in his analysis does not think so. But in the game after g4, Taimanov did not go to e5, he went to d4 with the knight. Larsson took, e takes, and bishop g5, hitting the rook on c1. And now Taimanov decides to sacrifice an exchange by castling here. Kasparov says this is tempting as the opponent is deprived of his important bishop, the only defender of the dark squares, but Kasparov still thinks this exchange sacrifice is dubious. The alternative would have been rook c2, taking that rook out of danger, but then black has rook e8 check, and if you interpose the rook, black takes, and the king has to take. This is also better for black with his bishop pair and the white king, which is vulnerable in the center of the board. But as said, after bishop g5, Taimanov decided to sack the exchange by castling. Larsson took the exchange, took on c1, rook takes, and bishop e6. Being the exchange up, Larsson does not mind giving up his b7 pawn. This is very instructive. Don't hold on to that pawn for dear life, just finish your development. You are an exchange up with black. Here queen takes b7 is possible. Black does not have the standard reaction to move a rook to b8, because that square is covered by the bishop on g3. But Taimanov did not go for the pawn, he played h3. He has an attacking idea in mind against the weakened black king on g8. With no dark squared bishop around, that king is weak. Larsson took, and bishop e5, that is Taimanov's idea. He wants to attack the king over the dark squares, play the knight away, and move the queen to g3 with checkmate to follow. And now it was up to Larsson to think, and after 25 minutes he came up with the move f7, f6. Playing the bishop away does not work for white. Taimanov played the very spectacular move knight e4, bringing the knight into the attack and opening the third rank for the queen. And it looks like black cannot take any of these 2 pieces that are hanging in the center. You cannot take the knight, because then there is queen takes e6 check, and white wins. And it looks like you cannot take the bishop either. But Larsson had looked further and he took the bishop, f takes e5. And how can you defend now against the mating attack with queen g3 check, played by Taimanov? Here black only has 3 legal moves. Going with the king in the corner does not work because of queen takes e5 check, king g8, and queen takes e6 check. With a winning position for white, he will win by bringing the rook into the attack through the c3 square. What else is there? Well, you can play king f7. That does not work either, because again, queen takes e5 will happen. And this is also better for white, despite being a rook down. You can't take the knight, because that will cost you your queen. D takes e4, and there is queen takes a5. That queen is unprotected there. The threat in this position is rook c7, protected by the queen, and a move like rook a to c8 does not work because of knight d6 check. And that's a fork, and white wins. So that leaves the third option. After queen g3 check, you cannot play king h8, you cannot play king f7. And the third option is bishop e6 to g4. And this is the best move in the position and one of the most fantastic chess moves ever played. Taimanov must have thought he was winning, and he must have fallen off his chair here when he saw this move, and he saw how strong it actually is. Kasparov writes, this timely return of material disrupts white's entire attacking mechanism. And that's the idea of bishop g4. Queen takes e5 now does not work because black's queen can come to the rescue, queen a6. And if you then play rook c7, threatening checkmate, then black can play queen g6 and is a rook up and will win this game. So Taimanov really did not have a choice. After bishop g4 he had to take, and he took with check. That also makes this move such a brilliant move because white can actually take it with check. King stepped aside and we now see the point. The white queen is on the wrong track. There is no queen takes e5 check followed by rook c7. In fact, the knight is now hanging on e4. The bishop g4 move has stalled white's attack just long enough for black to take over the attack. Taimanov played knight g5. Black is still material up and black's king is now safe. And Larsen is taking over the attack. Queen d2, threatening to take on f2, which he's attacking with 2 pieces, and threatening the rook on c1. You can play rook f1, but then there is h takes g2, king takes, and rook a e8, and black is winning with his extra material. White has no longer an attack going. So that is hopeless for white. Taimanov decided on rook c7, but then there was queen takes f2 check, and Larsen is now able to get the queens off the board, and then white's attack is completely gone. King h2, queen takes check, and the queens get swapped. Black now has a technically winning endgame with his extra material. D takes e5. Larsen activated his rook. Rook takes b7, and Larsen infiltrated on the second rank. Knight f7 check. Does white still have some chances? No. King g7 is a cold shower. There are no good discovered checks from the knight. e6. That is white's trump card, the passed e-pawn. But calmly, Larsen played king f6, e7, and a move like rook e8 is good enough. But in this position, Larsen completed his counter-attack with g1, queen check, a double check. Both the queen and the rook give check to the king, so you have to take, and rook g8 check, getting the rook out of harm's way on f8, and black's next move will taking the knight off the board, and then there is nothing to play for. Black is just a full rook up. Taimanov resigned after rook g8 check. What a wonderful game from the Danish giant Bent Larsen, turning defense into attack, in fact into counter-attack. Through a magnificent bishop sacrifice which was taken with check, it killed the coordination of the white attacking pieces just long enough to take over the attack. What a game! Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I hope you will give the video a thumbs up, that you subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and that you leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.